We, as a state, want to bring forth our delegates, 172, for Donald Trump.
Republicans started their convention with a sharp contrast to Democrats, conducting the roll call vote of states to renominate President Trump during the day, away from primetime viewers, and with a fraction of the 2,500 delegates attending.
Donald J. Trump for the President of the United States.
Our journey begins at the
Democrats used their roll call vote as a virtual cross-country journey, with delegations showing off a bit of their state while casting votes by video.
I actually think the virtual convention has been a boon to both parties. For one thing, the virtual convention allowed the DNC to really skirt the real intra-party differences among Democrats. You didn't have any huge protests or loud calls of support for Bernie Sanders, say, when his nomination was put into play. And you also didn't have those chants of lock her up, which were interspersed with among all the speeches at the RNC 4 years ago.
And you know what Joe Biden will do.
While Democrats made generous use of low-tech videos to deliver short speeches, Republicans tried to replicate the staging of a live convention using a mix of recorded and live speeches from a grand auditorium.
Good evening.
Only a handful of sitting elected Republican officials spoke.
Don't believe me?
Former President George W. Bush did not.
It's all run by Democrats.
The absence of the old guard of the Republican Party is definitely meaningful this year. As we've noted, you want to show the continuity of the party itself. You want to show the parties behind you. And the absence of key figures signals this year that that's not necessarily the case.
Instead, many of the featured speakers for Republicans have been members of the president's family and their significant others.
Who blame America first.
If the goal of the convention is to enthuse his voter base, maybe remind them of why they voted for Donald Trump 4 years ago, a family member is just as likely to do that as a Republican elected official, and perhaps even more likely, since one thing we know about the Trump base is that they are extremely suspicious of politics as usual.
First Lady Melania Trump expressed sympathies for those who have been affected by COVID-19. Other convention speakers praised the president for his handling of the crisis.
America has the most COVID deaths in the world.
While Democrats spent much of their convention criticizing Trump for not doing enough about the pandemic, the politics of it played out in some more subtle ways.
Joe Biden, of course, talked to his guests via Zoom remotely. And whenever Biden was in proximity with other people, he always was sure to model the use of a mask. Donald Trump, on the other hand, conducted his panels in person in the White House, and there were no masks involved. I think that speaks to larger differences between the two parties, not only on how to approach the coronavirus, but also the future of America in general.
We're facing the worst public health crisis.
And both parties claim the other is painting a dark picture of the American future if the opposing candidate wins.
I think what's interesting about this moment is that optimism as a claim is being manifest quite differently. And the Democratic National Convention, it was almost a more somber and intimate tone, some sense of even some mourning, especially when they showed pictures of people whose lives have been lost to COVID-19. And the optimism in the Republican case was manifest in terms of a higher volume, a tone of what will happen if the future is left in the hands of the Democrats.
Without a live audience to react and applaud, speeches have been shorter at both conventions. But fewer people watched either convention on television than did 4 years ago. Steve Reddish, VOA News, Washington.
Celebrating America as the land of promise.